15 at a time. I'm really sorry for the things I've done.
And I make sure he eats, and he told me, yes, Ma, I'm okay.
Donta Wright. Donta Wright, a 17-year-old teenager, admitted to killing 18-year-old Jordan Klee of Ann Arbor, Michigan. It was a shocking scene in a Washington County courtroom as Donta Wright sat smiling and almost laughing as family members of his victim read impressions in court.
I've lost my only child, my son, my baby, my friend. More than that, I've lost laughter and love. I no longer have the hope of having grandchildren.
A family member read in court on behalf of the victim's grieving mother. Afterward, the defendant Donta Wright addressed the court saying,
I just want to tell y'all, I'll be home soon. I love my family.
Wright's attitude didn't sit well with the judge.
Watching you sit there and smile, laugh, and shake your head like this was no big deal, I'm very tempted to just say, I'm not going to accept this sentence agreement. We'll go to trial, and if you're convicted of felony murder, you'll go to prison for the rest of your life. That means you'll die there. That's what I'm tempted to do.
The only thing I would say, Your Honor, is that if the court is intending to follow the plea agreement, my client wants to address the court, but I don't.
Well, of course.
I just want to tell y'all, I'll be home soon. R.I.P. Keon. I love my family.
He has some emotional problems and frankly was scared.
In some people's eyes, Donta Wright was sentenced to 25 to 52 years in prison. Philip Chisholm. In October 2013, a stunning and disturbing episode occurred when Philip Chisholm, a 9th grader at Danvers High School in Massachusetts, committed a terrible act that shocked the city. Chisholm, who was 14 at the time, violently attacked his 24-year-old math teacher, Colleen Ritzer. Ritzer, known for her cheerful demeanor and dedication to his students, asked Chisholm to stay after school that day. Unaware of the horrific plot he had already hatched, Chisholm followed Ritzer into the bathroom after the school day, and there he subjected Ritzer to his horrific torture. Police caught Chisholm the following day with Ritzer's blood on his hands because he didn't even try to wash them. This incriminating evidence would establish his guilt in the eyes of the authorities. The trial that followed this horrific incident resulted in a life-changing sentence for the young culprit. Philip Chisholm, now a teenager, was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 25 years. The courtroom was full of great emotions. Chisholm himself was shaken and lost for words during the trial. The victim's father, Tom Ritzer, expressed his immense sadness and shame that he could not protect his daughter. He clearly remembered looking for her at school, accidentally driving past her in the woods, and the pain of knowing he wouldn't undo what he had done. Conrad Schaefer. Conrad Schaefer experienced the repercussions of his conduct when he was sentenced to life in prison at the age of 18. He was involved in the heinous incidents that took the lives of 2 innocent people in 2013. The sad chain of events began when Schaefer tragically shot Dan Guerrero, who was innocently on his way to catch a bus to work. The brutality didn't end there though. Schaefer then went on to commit a home invasion with 3 other friends, and it was there that his actions became even more heinous as he took the life of another individual. Schaefer entered a plea of guilty, paving the way for his punishment. Although he had faced up to 40 years in prison, the judge imposed an even harsher sentence, 2 consecutive life sentences. Schaefer issued a pathetic apology to the relatives of his victims in the courtroom, who were overwhelmed with tears. He expressed contrition for his actions, acknowledging the wrongness. However, in the eyes of the victims' families, his apology would fall short, leaving them with an inexplicable hole that would never be filled. The victim's aunt would voice her own sadness, wishing for a moment when Schaefer could genuinely comprehend the suffering that he had caused. Prosecutor Jeff Ashton reiterated the family's comments, emphasizing the need to keep Schaefer locked up in order to safeguard the community. As the weight of the punishment fell upon him, Schaefer lowered his head, plainly stunned and overwhelmed with guilt. Investigators would discover that Schaefer had gotten his father to buy him a rifle and ammunition. Testimony from his mother would emphasize his early problems with leukemia, implying that it had hardened him and increased his temper throughout his formative years. While his father suffered legal penalties for his involvement, including jail time and probation, it would be Conrad Schaefer who eventually paid the ultimate price. Shanita Cunningham. Shanita Cunningham and her accomplice, Erica Butts, bore the repercussions of their horrible crimes that took the life of a child, Serenity Richardson. The Their life sentence left no question about the gravity of their crimes. As the details of Serenity's horrific story would emerge, the courtroom would fall silent. Butts and Cunningham had subjected Serenity to acts of brutality, and assistant managing solicitor Elizabeth Gordon was at a loss for words during the trial. It was discovered that the incident took place over a 2-week period. According to the criminals, the reason for the assault was Serenity's toilet accident. However, the extent of the victim's injury demonstrated that the pair were fully aware of the result of their actions. They began to hyperventilate and collapsed to the floor shortly after being sentenced to life in prison, with family members crying out in pain. Both of the criminals had to be escorted out of the courtroom. Elizabeth Gordon, the seasoned prosecutor, having watched several atrocities against vulnerable people, declared this to be the worst one that she'd ever witnessed. The punishment of life in prison conveyed a clear message that such horrible crimes would never go unpunished. Damon Kemp. Damon Kemp, 19, accused of taking the lives of his teenage partners, has been jailed without hope of freedom. Kemp's response when he was brought into the courtroom for his bond hearing was nothing short of remarkable, causing concern among the victim's relatives. The courtroom was tense, and tears were seen in the eyes of friends and family affected by his terrible tragedy. Narissa Carter, sitting in the front row, was overcome with emotion as she mourned the brutal killing of her 19-year-old son, Trey Ingram. The grief became unbearable, prompting her to briefly leave the courtroom, a situation familiar to any tolerant mother. Damon Kemp's actions in court raised concerns and deepened the dark atmosphere as the judge read his charges and sealed his fate. He began to shout and appeal to a higher power.
Judge Orfinger, I'm going to conduct your first appearance.
Kemp's feelings and behavior were disturbing, which added confusion to the case. The judge denied bail because there was enough probable cause to arrest him. Trey's family became increasingly open amid tears and sobs from Kemp's family and friends, leading to them being escorted from the courtroom. Kemp was arrested in connection with an armed home invasion. Unfortunately, authorities never released the motive for the shooting, leaving both families to grapple with the tragic deaths of their loved ones. What do you think about these teenage criminals and the sentences they were given? Let me know in the comments below. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more like it in the future, and I'll see you next time.